It's Wednesday, September 5th, and I'm your host, Paula Hersey. On today's show, we have lots of election results, the MCI airport drill, and little Bruins. Let's start with some news you can use. Governor Charlie Baker easily defeated a primary challenge from Springfield pastor Scott Lively. He'll face Jay Gonzalez in the November general election. Gonzalez defeated Bob Massey in the Democratic primary. Republican Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito ran unopposed. For the Democrats, Quentin Palfrey defeated Jimmy Tingle for the Lieutenant Governor nomination. Jeff Dell dominated over fellow Republicans John Kingston and Beth Lindstrom in the Republican U.S. Senate primary and will face incumbent Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren in November. In the race for the 9th Congressional District, William Keating held off a challenge from fellow Democrat and self-proclaimed socialist Bill Cimbrello. Keating will face Republican Peter Tedeschi in the general election. James McMahon of Bourne won over fellow Republican Dan Shores for the Republican Attorney General nomination. Incumbent Democratic Attorney General Maura Healey ran unopposed. Longtime incumbent Democratic Secretary of State William Galvin easily defeated a primary challenge from Josh Zakim. For Cape and Island State Senate, Democrat incumbent Julian Cyr and Republican John Flores ran unopposed and will face each other in November. Second Barnstable Republican State Representative Will Crocker will face a challenge in November from Democrat Paul Cusack. In the Democratic primary for the first Barnstable State Representative race, Steve Leibowitz defeated Joshua Mason. Leibowitz will face Republican incumbent Tim Whalen. Incumbent 5th Barnstable Republican State Representative Randy Hunt had a decisive primary victory Tuesday over fellow Republican Ron Beatty. Hunt will face Democrat Jack Stanton in the November general election. Stanton was running unopposed. Barnstable Municipal Airport will be staging a drill today at 5 p.m. with other local first responder agencies to test their response to a mass casualty incident. Airport Manager Katie Service and Hyannis Fire Chief Peter Burke joined us in studio to discuss this important exercise and what the public can expect. What would happen if the airport had a mass casualty incident? What agencies would respond to that, and how would they handle it? With me today, Chief Peter Burke from the Hyannis Fire Department and Barnstable Municipal Airport Manager Katie Service. We're going to find out. There's a drill happening.
There is.
That's right.
September 5th, 5 o'clock at the airport and Lewis Bay. Both entities will be testing their capabilities to respond to a mass disaster at either location, either in Lewis Bay or the airport. So let's start with the airport, Katie. Tell us why this drill is happening.
Well, I'll give you the backstory. The reason why we do the drill is because we need to maintain or adhere to our federal regulations as a certified airport. So under the Federal Aviation Administration, we are required to conduct numerous types of drills to make sure that our first responders on the airport are capable, they're ready to respond to an incident should occur on the airport, and to just test our communications, test our capabilities, and overall just test how every situation and how we can respond to that situation. Training, training, training.
Training, training, training. And talking about this, it's not just your two entities that are involved in this. There's several others as well, correct?
Correct. Right.
Okay, so
the airport, just a little bit of background, the airport are the first responders to anything that occurs on the airport facility. Hyannis Fire is always right there to work with us as soon as that alarm goes off. So our folks get into their trucks. We have 3 trucks at the airport that are fire equipped to be able to handle that. They get into the vehicles, they go out to the scene, and Hyannis Fire is at the gate right away. As soon as Hyannis Fire comes on board, they work with the airport staff to assess the scene, to determine what the needs are, and we work as a team. So beyond just the airport folks in the Hyannis Fire, we also work with Barnstable Police, we work with the state police, we work with the Red Cross. So we have a lot of, and even other fire departments locally in our areas that we call upon to assist us if there is an incident that occurs at the airport. They will be players as part of this drill.
Okay, so this drill is really important for Hyannis Fire Department as well as the broader town fire departments that are out there. And you're adding a component of water this year.
Sure. So a lot of the air traffic goes over Nantucket Sound, obviously, and we know that's a challenge. Obviously, should an aircraft go down there. So one aspect of the exercise this year will be a simulated aircraft down in Lewis Bay.
So when you talk about an aircraft down in the bay, there's a whole lot that happens there. You have what, maybe 2-3 boats? So
Sure.
The coordinated marine effort, how does that happen?
Sure. So we actually have a fairly robust maritime response program that's run out of county control in conjunction with the Coast Guard. So by federal statute, the Coast Guard is the incident commander. So we work close with them to ensure there's enough assets, which are essentially boats, that be deployed out to Lewis Bay to retrieve any victims and make that situation safe.
Okay. And the third component of this that folks probably aren't really considering is the emergency, what happens to the victims. So there's people that are going to play the victims. You have volunteers that are playing victims?
Yes, so we have volunteers, and we use the volunteers so that the fire department, so the airport and the fire department that's responding, and EMS that's responding, we try to make it as real world scenario as possible. So we do use volunteers as victims so that we can identify victims that need to go to the hospital. Cape Cod Hospital is also a player in this event. So they're testing their own capabilities to deal with a large disaster of this kind, and how they will have patients and incoming patients, and how they will deal with an influx of over 40 people coming to the hospital, and how their staff will handle a crisis like that.
Right. And the airport's grown, obviously, in aircraft. So, you know, JetBlue is coming in now. Retrix has got some of the larger planes. So this is really a test of a lot of capabilities for some of these larger planes that carry more passengers.
Correct. So the Federal Aviation Administration requires that we put a drill like this and test ourselves for the inevitability of the largest aircraft. So at this point in time, that is the, you know, for instance, the JetBlue aircraft that comes in. That's our largest aircraft. But what a lot of our residents in CUNY are not aware of is that we do have a lot of corporate aircraft that are just as big as the JetBlue aircraft coming in, or an aircraft of 100 passenger seat, you know, anywhere between 50 and 100 passengers. So not only do we deal with those commercial service aircraft that we're preparing for, we're also making sure that we can respond to any incident, whether it be a 2-passenger, 4-passenger, 50-passenger aircraft. Whatever the size aircraft, it is still a response to be able to identify how we're going to deal with that situation. If there's a fire, if there's passengers that are stuck in the aircraft, how are we going to extricate those passengers? So it just gives us the opportunity to look at the gamut of aircraft that are coming onto the airfield and how we deal with each one differently.
Okay. An enormous amount of planning, Chief. You had some folks that were part of that team to plan. Tell us about it.
We did, yeah. We're really fortunate. We have Captain Mark Story and firefighter Pete Nagorka, both who have a background in aircraft firefighting, took the lead as what's called the exercise directors. So this is being run according to the Homeland Security Exercise and Evaluation Program protocols. So that provides a framework for Katie and her staff and our Hyannis Fire Department staff to really develop a program that's, or an exercise rather, that is safe and driven by objectives, and then those objectives are evaluated. So one of the important things for us is that these are transferable skills. So while we're working with the airport, from our perspective, a mass casualty incident, you know, a number of patients that need to get treated and transported, that could be from a bus accident, it could be from a hazardous material spill, it could be from a ferry collision. In this instance, it's an airport. So we get a lot of value from this training exercise. So an enormous amount of work went into it to make sure that all the moving parts are together and safe. There will be some simulated fires on the airfield, so there's a lot going on, but we're really fortunate to have a great team working on that. And earlier this week we did a tabletop walking through the scenario and the evolution to ensure that there aren't any kind of unforeseen circumstances. So we're really excited, I think, and we have a great plan.
Right. And the main thing, and I agree with Chief Burke, because the main thing is to get our groups together so that if something does happen, I know the faces of the emergency response team that I can go to and I can ask for help. And that's the key thing, is to have these meetings and to have that opportunity to work with the people that you're going to see out there in the field if this ever occurs in this area. So to have those connections, to meet with those people on a regular basis is key to being able to serve the community better and be able to respond to an incident should it happen.
Right. And this is, what, 6 months planning?
We started planning in March. There's a lot of planning, background planning to make sure that, for instance, what radio communications are we going to use? What frequencies are we going to use? What will be the protocol if there were a real-world incident? What's the protocol for bringing the victims or the volunteers to the hospital? So all of these moving parts had to be fleshed out. You know, our staff has a checklist. What do we need on the airport to be able to do our functions for the disaster zone? I'm sure the chief and his folks have a checklist for Lewis Bay. Right. So it's the planning for it is quite large, and I have to say, thank you to the Hyannis Fire Department for their assistance, because we just all worked very well together in making this come together.
That makes me as a resident feel really, really good. And let's talk about what residents can do to help this be successful. Folks, the Rotary literally is going to be jammed. So September 5th, 5 o'clock this exercise starts. It's right at rush hour. How can residents, number one, stay aware of what's going on in the area, and two, help stay out of the area?
You know, I think that's, unfortunately, there isn't really an opportunity for the citizens to view this. It is off on the airfield and out fairly far off in Lewis Bay. And so the best thing they could probably do is avoid the area, understand we're there and train. There'll be pictures available. Certainly you guys will be there as well. So there'll be the opportunity for media releases for them to see what happens there, but because of the nature of the airport and where we're operating, there just isn't a great place for them to be. So the best thing they could do is avoid that area during the time frame of 5 to 10 o'clock or so.
Okay. And the other thing I think that we kind of want to make sure is that this is an exercise. There's going to be sirens. It's going to look scary, right?
Right. So I think what the residents have to be aware of is that they're going to see a number of fire apparatus, a number of EMS vehicles, police vehicles that are responding to the mock incident. So they're going to see some activity, some people that, you know, might not know what's going on. Please spread the word, because although, like the chief said, the areas that we're doing the drill at, that we're conducting the drill, are kind of far off from the roadways, they're still going to see those lights and hear those sirens. So just know it is a drill. We are practicing our response to an incident should it ever occur in this area.
Okay. And how about on the water? Still got boats out there. I know it's after Labor Day, but those pleasure boats and seekers, stay away, right?
Yeah, we'll have security vessels out there with a coordinates. We'll have members of our regional dive team simulating victims. So we'll have people in the water, and the rescue boats will be searching for them and then removing them from the water. So there'll be security vessels keeping the area clean. We're going to be outside the ferry channels. We won't be anywhere near where there should be any other boating activity. So yeah, certainly we just ask recreation boaters to steer clear of the area. And I should also mention as well, as much as the airport and Hyannis Fire are working really closely with Barnstable PD and other agencies, we do have the other 4 fire districts participating, as well as Yarmouth Fire, and then a variety of other fire departments who are sending specific assets or ambulances and engines. So this is, I believe last night we figured about 15 or so fire companies operating. So it is sizable. So Katie's absolutely right. There's going to be a lot of activity there. So we're certainly thankful to all those other agencies for their assistance as well.
Right.
And I'm glad that Chief Burke just mentioned that, because one of the things I failed to mention was Red Cross. Red Cross are practicing their family support center. So they are going to evaluate how their people and their staff respond to an incident should it occur. So they're actually testing their own people on how they're going to handle a situation that's a mass casualty, and how they will deal with the influx of family, friends, and people that are just interested in learning more about the incident. Right. So they're going to be practicing that. Our airlines are going to be working with them and arriving at their location, so that the airlines themselves can evaluate their people on how they would respond to a situation like this. Because if you think about it, if something were to occur like this, you have people coming to the airport, they're trying to learn information, their loved ones may have been on an aircraft. So you have an influx of people. How do you deal with that? Well, the Red Cross is there to help us deal with that, and the airlines have their own programs, so they're going to test that.
Okay, so the tenants of the airport are actually going to be testing their capabilities
Yes,
as
they
well.
are.
Amazing. Just, kudos to the team out there. I hope it's successful and that you get the training that you need, that our residents are so grateful for.
Thanks for having us.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much.
HYCC and Barnstable Youth Hockey have joined together to host the Bruins Academy Learn to Play Hockey program, which has certified instructors as well as former local coaches and players to teach kids the basics. The program is available to boys and girls ages 4 through 9. For a registration fee of $100, the program includes a full free set of CCM equipment to keep valued at $500 retail, which includes skates, a professional personalized fitting, and 4 weeks of on-ice instruction led by certified coaches. The Boston Bruins are thrilled to share their passion for hockey with the next generation of hockey players. Registration is now open at bostonbruins.com/learn-to-play.
Hockey itself is kind of overwhelming for any age, but particularly that grassroots foundation level. It's a lot to absorb and a lot to look at. And so Chris Fry's amazing. Absolutely, let's do it. Whatever you need, let's get this done. And within weeks, we were approved. We said, green light, let's go. For $100, this program outfits these kids from head to toe. Skates, helmets, gear, sticks, the whole 9 yards. It's $100. You can't get that deal anywhere. And we're lucky. I mean, this hockey community is big yet small, and everyone has come out to want to help. We have high school alumni out there. We have Barnstable Youth Hockey coaches that are here. It's not just 60 minutes on the ice. Some of these guys are here a full hour ahead of time to set up for me and to, get these stations the way that they should. And it's amazing. We have the high school varsity coaches here. Everybody, right down to the high school players. They're all out. They're here to volunteer their time and to grow programs, and that's what we need.
All the way around. Helping out myself along with two of the players. They're helping out with the Bruins Academy, teaching younger kids how to skate and play the game. They're a lot of fun. It's a lot different than coaching the high school team. They're not fresh. They're out there. The first week they're usually a little bit scared. Each week they open up a little bit more and more, and get more comfortable on the ice. But they're a lot of fun. The Bruins organization is obviously great. I've been a Bruins fan my whole life growing up, so it's fun to come out and see the black and gold and the bees on the kids' jerseys. And hockey's an expensive game. It's tough to get kids started. So basically donating money to help with the gear and I think it's only $100 for the kids to get completely outfitted, which is next to nothing compared to what it usually is. So, that's Bruins are responsible for that, and it just helps grow the game and gives me some future prospects to look at.
I'm involved with this Learn to Play, Learn to Skate program put on by the NHL in pretty much every NHL city. I met a lot of I'm the president of the Boston Bruins alumni. I met a lot of the other presidents last Sunday at a meeting in Toronto. And this program is being rolled out in a lot of cities, and in New England alone has 200 locations where they're doing this. So it's great of the NHL to get young people into the game of hockey where normally they may not think about it or may not be able to afford it. It's a super program. It's great to see the kids. I like the station work. I like the USA Hockey ADM style, the small rinks. And everybody that I run into is having fun. Some of them are a little hesitant to get on the ice, but once they get on the ice, they have a good time. And all the coaches have been great. So kudos to them everywhere.
Makerspaces help children learn real-world concepts. Here's a look at Centerville Elementary.
This fall, Matt Shifley, the principal of this building, had a meeting with myself, Beth Ann Orr, and our Gateway personnel as well to talk about his vision for this space. So he'd heard of makerspaces, he included it in his school improvement plan, wasn't really sure what that was going to look like. And so he and I had worked together previously. I was in his building, and he said to me, I want to turn this into a makerspace, what do you think? And we walked into this space, and it was kind of a storage classroom, if you would, hadn't been used. So everything under the sun was in here, couldn't see the walls, and needed a little TLC. And I looked at it, and I just started walking around, and in my brain I started to envision what I thought it might look like. Maker spaces were somewhat new to me, so I just dug deep into research, found some great resources, and drew a very quick crayon drawing. Brought it into him and transformed into what you see now.
So I think the first step with the makerspace right now is to get our children in and see what ideas our students come up with. And my hope would be that they would be communicating in the regular classroom with their teachers after their experiences here in the makerspace, and maybe generate some ideas that the teachers could bounce off of myself or Mrs. White, our technology educator. And you know, we've got a nice space in here where we have just behind you a wall that says things I'd like to learn and make or do. And I'm one of the things that we learned, Kim and I, when we did our visits to some of the maker spaces in the area, was that the children actually become the driving force, and the adults found that the ideas that they had weren't necessarily the direction that the children wanted to go. And what the common theme that we heard in our research was don't lose sight of what children want to do and learn, and you're going to go further with it because the motivation's going to be there for them to explore their ideas. So I'm hoping that's the chain that will, you know, the chain of events that will occur and help us make this space something that the children really want to be a part of.
Students are going to come here and they're going to struggle with problems. It's a mindset shift, and that's going to be our biggest challenge. It's not a space where an entire class comes and replicates a project. It's a space where students come in smaller groups, work collaboratively, teachers identify a problem, ask them some questions, allow the students to struggle through that problem-solving philosophy, try something with a prototype, figure out what doesn't work, fix it, and then come up with their end product. All of these areas encourage collaboration. So a student could come and work independently, of course, but more importantly is that collaborative feeling. When you go into the real world, very rarely are you isolated in a job. You have to learn to work with people. You have to learn to compromise. You have deadlines. So this mindset and this space has been designed to foster and encourage that.
Here's a look at the community calendar. Today, senior citizens are more digitally connected than ever. However, numbers indicate that only 14% of those seniors choose to harness technology for their finances. The barriers that keep many seniors from adapting to online banking are understandable. They worry it's unsafe, it's out of their comfort zone, they're perhaps not as savvy with new technology as younger generations. The Cooperative Bank of Cape Cod senior team will offer an online banking 101 presentation on Thursday, September 6th from 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. that will cover such topics as banking transactions that can be done from a phone or computer, tutorials covering mobile online deposits, paying bills online, and transferring money between accounts. Simple steps for keeping your information safe, how to get started, where to turn for help, and end with a Q&A. Light refreshments will be served. RSVP is required. Please call the Senior Center. Here is a look at this week's meeting schedule for boards, commissions, and committees. comments, suggestions, accolades? Connect with us on Facebook and Instagram. Email us or send us an old-fashioned note by carrier pigeon. Channel 18 works for you. I'm Paula Hersey, and thank you for watching Barnstable Today.